Hello everyone, Nicholson here, and welcome to Coming Soon Movie News with Nicholson. I'm your host, and on this show we're going to be breaking down all of the day's movie news and kind of giving a little bit of background into what it all means for the production in general, such as casting decisions, trailer announcements, director announcements, things like that. Now what I'd like to do, and I've already done this once, and I'm going to try to keep this a regular thing, is every Friday, whatever major release is coming out that week, I will hopefully on the Friday episode be able to review that and have that be the first topic that we talk about. So I did it a few weeks ago with Need for Speed, and now I'm going to do it again, and today's topic is going to be Noah. So actually earlier today I went and saw Noah, and I was really surprised by the film. I knew it's directed by Darren Aronofsky, and for those of you who don't know any of Darren Aronofsky's past work, the one that people are most likely to relate to, or not relate, that's a bad word to use, be one that they can at least remember or recognize the movie would be Black Swan, which was the Natalie Portman, Mila Kunis movie that came out just a few years ago. But in my personal opinion, one of his best movies that he's ever done was The Fountain. And The Fountain was a movie that he did with Hugh Jackman. I believe it was in either 2006 or 2007. And The Fountain was a very ambitious project for two main reasons. One, it was set in three different time periods with the same characters. Or sorry, not the same characters, same actors, playing the same type of roles. So it was set in around the year 1500, or 1505, I believe, or 1506. And then it was set in 2006, and then it was set in 2506. So it was each separated by about 500 years. And Hugh Jackman played the main character, and Rachel Weisz played his wife or love interest in the three stories. And all three of them revolved around the fact that the Rachel Weisz's character was either dying or was going to be killed, and it was his job to try to stop that. So in 1500s, I believe she was some kind of a queen, and he was a warrior who was trying to get to her. And I believe he doesn't succeed in modern times. He's a doctor, and I believe she's dying from an illness, and he's trying to figure out the cure. And then in the future, the future one is really kind of weird because he's floating through space in this giant protected bubble, and it's got a tree inside of it, and the tree itself is the tree of life. And every day or every few days or so, he picks off a little bit of bark and eats it, and that's what keeps him young and keeps him alive. It was a very ambitious film because it was Darren Aronofsky's first major studio film. Every other film he had done before that was independent, so therefore there wasn't a lot of risk involved with it. Therefore, the studio didn't have a lot of input. So, or if the studio was even involved, usually the studios at that point are only involved for distribution, just to get it out to theaters and to do the promotions for it. But when it came to that movie, that was the first time that he'd ever turned to a studio to actually finance the film. And there were a few troubles, there were a few compromises that he did have to make, and he's regretted doing that. That's one of the reasons why Noah was such a surprise to me, because I felt it was going to be the same thing. It's the next major budgeted movie that he's done with the studio. And so the one thing that I can definitely say, I'm going to try to avoid as many spoilers as possible, because I know today was the opening day, so I know a lot of you probably haven't seen it. So I'm going to try to avoid as many spoilers as I can, but it's filled to the brim with little Aronofsky touches, which I thought was great. I was hoping that those were going to be there, and they were. If you know Aronofsky's work, probably his best film, like my favorite is The Fountain, but his best film overall is probably Requiem for a Dream, the movie with Ellen Burstyn and Marlon Wayans and Jared Leto. That's just a tormented movie, but it's so well done. It's one of those movies like 12 Years a Slave where you watch it, you're glad that you watched it because it is such a recognized film and such an important film, but you probably will never watch it again because it's so uncomfortable. That's how I felt about that movie. But with Noah is probably the one movie of his that has the most, in my opinion, has the most rewatchability. Essentially, it's told in three separate parts. The first 20 to 30, actually no more like 30 minutes of the movie or so are told before the flood is even known. And then he knows that it's coming, and so then he needs to try to build the ark. And then the next segment comes to when, after the ark is already pretty much done, and he confronts Tobal Cain. And Tobal Cain in the movie, who's played by Ray Winstone, is the main villain. And he's the descendant of Cain. Now, the movie starts off with a couple of quotes on the screen, and the first one says that Adam, like it goes through the whole Adam and Eve story, but it says that they had three children. They had Cain, Abel, and Seth. And then obviously people know about Cain and Abel and Cain killing Abel. So it was basically Seth's line of descendants were the good line. Like it's as black and white as I can make it. They're essentially the good line. They're the redemption line. And then Cain's line are the line of men who are trying to just take over like they just basically want the world for themselves. They want men to control it. So they tear down all the forests and use all the wood to build all these cities and stuff like that. And this is, mind you, this is well before, this is based on how do I politically correctly say this? The religious history of the world, the creationist idea of the history of the world. So this is not, this movie does hint at evolution, and there's one main segment near the end of the film which really does kind of peg at that when he's reading the story of Genesis essentially, and what you're seeing on screen is essentially the story of evolution, which I thought was a brilliant touch by Aronofsky. I thought that was just absolutely amazing that he did that, and that he had the guts to do something like that, because that's really going to tick a lot of people off. But it it was kind of interesting. I mean, when you see the third section of the film, because I mean the one thing, this is not really a spoiler because this is in the trailer, so I mean you know what's going to happen. But the flood segment is just over. I think it's between halfway, maybe 2/3 of the way through the movie. There's an entire major section of the movie that they haven't even hinted at in the trailers yet. The entire, I'd say, last 40 to 45 minutes of the film is not even shown in the trailers. And that's when you see a completely different side of almost every character, because that's after the floods happen and they're all on the ship. Um, but the fact with Tobal Cain being such a bad person, and throughout the majority of the movie, at least what your interpretation is that Noah is such a good person. They're very contrast to one another. Then as the story progresses and you kind of see a multi-layered version of Noah and what if he's actually getting this voice from God telling him to do these things, or if he's just imagining it, or if he's losing his mind. And it's a great character story amidst amazing special effects and a brilliantly told story of family trying to survive. Like I was awe-inspired by this movie. I could not get over how well done it was. I felt that it was just Aronofsky doing a studio film. It wasn't going to have any of his touches, and it had so many of them. One of the standouts for me is in a small role, but it was Anthony Hopkins as Methuselah, who was in this story, because again, this is not the Bible's story of Noah. This is essentially a recount of all known retellings of the story of the flood from each religion, and kind of taking all these things and combining them into a narrative for cinematic purposes. John Campea over at AMC Movie News put it best. He goes, "I go to the movies to be entertained. I don't go to the movies for a history lesson, and movies should not be a history lesson. Movies should be an adapted story with the key points of if it's based on something real, it's getting the key points of what happened, and then obviously putting something in to make it more entertaining, take the edge off, especially if it's a really dark story." Like, I mean, as entertaining of a film as this is essentially the end of the world. This is God coming in and smiting the entire world and just cleansing it and washing it clean. It's not for everybody by any stretch of the imagination. I had a blast. Mainly, one of the main reasons I'm such a huge film fan. I can see a lot of the things behind it and a lot of the things that went into creating these segments. But also just because it's purely just a very entertaining movie, and I can put the religious aspects of the film aside. I mean, yeah, it's talking about God, but I mean, there's lots of movies where they talk about God. I'm a big fan of Battlestar Galactica, and in Battlestar Galactica, they always talk about the gods, and that's just part of those characters, and I can understand that in that mythology, but as long as it's understood as a mythology, and that's how most religions are in the world. I mean, I completely accept people having their own religious beliefs, 100%. I have nothing against that. But what I do have a problem with is when people come up and try to pass that off as fact, because there's nothing factual about it. We just don't know. I'm not saying that there's nothing. I'm just saying that there's no fact about it. And so this movie really does try to play up the fantastical elements of these stories and really say, like, listen, as much as this is most likely not true, that this did not actually happen, this is how it was imagined, and it's imagined as a story. Excuse me. But the main thing that I took away from this movie, and one thing, they've been hiding this from the trailers, with the exception of one shot. You don't even see them, you see their previous versions, but it was the Watchers. And the Watchers are essentially these fallen angels who came down to help the world when Cain killed Abel. And as soon as they crashed to Earth, they basically defied God, and they were turned into these rock monsters. Um, and you could just see parts of their angel soul kind of bleeding out. But the animation that was done on them was absolutely phenomenal. They were kind of these stop motion type things. Like it's very jagged. A lot of the special effects, especially that sequence of Genesis, is told in that kind of in that stop motiony way. It's just it's jarring, but it's not seamless. It actually makes you like it just makes you pay attention. It keeps you, as long as you're not epileptic, it keeps you engaged. And it's just something that we haven't seen in a long time, if at all. And so that's one thing that really makes it stick in your mind. Even though it's not seamless, they're not moving like this, they're moving like that. I thought every part of this movie was just done very, very well. There probably could have been maybe 20 minutes of the movie shaved off, maybe 15 to 20 minutes. It did start to feel like there was a time near the end where I felt, okay, is it over yet? I was kind of looking at my watch, but I was still engaged, and I didn't want to leave. I just wanted the story to wrap up because I felt like there were too many segments in the movie that were just going on a little too long. But other than that, I felt like it was a very, very, very good movie. But like I said, it's not for everybody, so definitely I would say check it out. Give it a shot. If you don't like it, absolutely, as John Campea says over at AMC Movie News, all film is subjective. Just because I like a movie and you don't doesn't mean that you're wrong, or vice versa. So. But definitely check it out because it is worth going to see. And I don't think he's going to get nominated for it because it's so early in the year, but this is easily one of Russell Crowe's absolute best performances. I was very surprised at the different levels of his portrayal of this character of Noah. He's really a conflicted character, basically running completely off of faith. And when his faith starts to get shaken, you really see the man start to break down, and it's almost a gut-wrenching performance. So it was definitely one to check out. So the next topic that I want to talk about is actually one that I planned on having a video up yesterday, but over the past couple of days, YouTube has been having some issues. So I recorded an episode yesterday just talking about the Ninja Turtles trailer, the new trailer for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But because of YouTube's issues, I wasn't able to upload it. So I'm going to talk about it on today's episode. Now, I've gotten a couple of comments from other people saying that they weren't very impressed by this trailer, and the one thing I can understand where they're coming from. I definitely can, because this is basically an announcement trailer. There's nothing really given about the plot. There's only one little tiny story tidbit that's given out, and that's a little hint at the origins of the Turtles, that they are that Shredder in the movie, who's played by William Fichtner, had a hand in creating the Turtles with the father of April O'Neil's character. So the fact that they're actually tying all these characters together through relationships is a little bit worrisome for me. I do like the fact that they're going with a different origin, but it's not aliens, because that was the original one that came out, that they were going to be aliens from outer space. So I'm glad that that's not the case, but I don't really know. I mean, I liked it. I was enjoyed by it. I can see why people were a little bit disappointed by it, because there was only two action scenes that were shown, and they were long shots. Like, it was the scene in the subway where you see April O'Neil just kind of trying to record everything, and you just see quick flashes of guys being thrown against walls and against ceilings, stuff like that. And then you see the hillside sequence, which is just two shots, and it's the turtles sliding on their shells, going down this hill, and they're kind of swinging each other around to pick up speed, and then they launch Raphael at what looks to be an army Humvee, and he's upside down. He smashes into the side of it, and then it does a 300 thing where it immediately goes slow-mo, and you just see all the damage and the car crushing around him, and he's got a size out ready to attack somebody. So it's like that was a pretty cool scene, and because this is an announcement trailer and we really haven't seen anything other than these segments, there's a lot more that we don't know about this film. There's a lot more action. You can definitely feel the Transformers vibe. The fact that Michael Bay is producing it, I mean, You can definitely sense that. And looking at someone like Jonathan Liebsman, who is the director, he directed Battle Los Angeles, he directed Wrath of the Titans, and now he's directed this. Each movie has its own distinct and unique feel, um, which can be a good or a bad thing. It could mean that he definitely has his own style, which is adapting to the actual material that he's doing, or his style is that of whoever producer he's working with that also happens to be a filmmaker, or potentially a movie that he likes. Um, when you watch Wrath of the Titans looked very similar to Clash of the Titans. It was just a little bit more artistic. When you look at Battle Los Angeles, that kind of had its own feel, but it almost looked like it could have been part of the live action Halo shorts. And then when you look at this looks like it came right off of the set. Like they, instead of having CGI turtles, they had CGI robots, or vice versa. So I'm hoping that this is a good movie. There's been a lot of backlash against this project, and I do feel that because of the amount of backlash with this movie, not only with Megan Fox being cast as April O'Neil, which this trailer didn't really curb that worry that I have about that part. Because again, we just didn't get a lot from it. It was more of an announcement, like letting people know, hey, we're doing this. This movie's coming out. I have a feeling that either before or when the new Transformers movie premieres, we'll get a new trailer. Transformers is coming out at the end of June. But with there being April, May, and June, I can't see them going 3 more months without another trailer. They're probably going to have another teaser trailer of sorts where it'll give more information about the plot. Like what they did with the Avengers. The Avengers had the first very much teaser trailer as the after credit sequence with Captain America, the first one. Then they released a trailer in around December that was kind of gave people an idea of what was going on in the movie, let people know that these guys were fighting. And then the final trailer came out about 2.5 to 3 months before the movie came out. And it really gave a sense of the story, gave an idea of where everyone was going, what the motivations were, what the action sequences they were going to be looking forward to, and all that stuff. I have a feeling that this is an announcement trailer, probably sometime in May, with this being Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is Paramount. In May, I don't think Paramount has a major release coming out, at least not that I'm thinking. They might have one on Memorial Day, but I'd have to double check that. But I have a feeling that sometime in May, we're going to get another trailer, maybe the middle of May, and then at the end of June, we'll get the full trailer with Transformers, and then the movie comes out on August 8th. So I think we need to get a little bit more footage from this just to kind of get an idea of what to expect. But from the first glance, like, I mean, the design of both Leonardo with his kind of samurai, he's got his two samurai swords, but he's got his little samurai chest piece, to seeing Michelangelo and the little joke that Michelangelo gives, like, hey, don't worry, it's not scary, I'm just a mask. And he takes off the mask, and it really doesn't change April's opinion of what she's looking at. It just, she's kind of a little bit more stunned and faints because this giant anthropomorphic turtle is not talking to her. So that little snippet of dialogue gave me the hope that I have for this movie, because it looks to me like it's got the comedy, the humor that the original movies had, but maybe not as much campiness and more up-to-date action obviously up-to-date action sequences. But seeing these two characters created and in CG no less, like in live action, almost photorealistic. They got to do a little bit of work on the CG because the CG does look a little dodgy, but I think we're going to get some better looks at this within the next few months, and then obviously with the final trailer, we're going to get a much better sense of the movie. So I'm really looking forward to that. But as it stands right now, I am cautiously optimistic about this film. I was intrigued by the trailer, but I definitely need to see more. And so the last major topic that we have to talk about before we get to the user questions is Arnold Schwarzenegger. Right now, he's out promoting his new movie called Sabotage, which looks phenomenal. I cannot wait to see it. He actually was asked about the upcoming Terminator movie, and even though this is a so-called reboot, how is he still involved with this project? And he gave a little bit of an idea of why that is, and he went on to say that, well, with the Terminators, with the T-800 and stuff, like it's living tissue over a metal endoskeleton. So the living tissue, even though it doesn't do it as fast as regular humans do, the skin will still age and the tissue will still age. So they could have an older T-800, one that's been around for a long time, that they send back, because the main idea that we have about the film is that it's going to for the majority of it, take place during the events of Terminator 1 and 2, just from different perspectives. Very similar to the Back to the Future. Back to the Future 2, I believe, where a lot of the second half of the movie took place during the events of the first film. So with that, we know actually just today they announced that they've cast the actor who will be playing the son of Miles Dyson, who was the man responsible for creating Cyberdyne in Terminator 2, the guy who dropped the detonator on the bomb that blew up that office building. His son has just been cast. They originally thought that John Boyega from Attack the Block was going to be cast, but it looks more likely now, especially with this role being cast with someone else, that he is going to be involved in the new Star Wars movie, because he's also been rumored to be involved in that. But he also said, Arnold also went on to say that not only is it going to take place, or most likely take place within the events of T1 and T2, but it will include a younger T-800, looking like Arnold from the original Terminator. So very much like the CGI face that they put on the Terminator in Terminator Salvation. I think that they're going to have a sequence where a young Terminator and an older Terminator go head to head and fight. But the fact that they have Emilia Clarke, who plays Daenerys Targaryen on Game of Thrones, playing Sarah Connor, and Jason Clarke, unrelated, he was the main actor in Zero Dark 30. He's starring in the upcoming Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which comes out this summer. He's the one who's playing John Connor. And I forget who they got playing Kyle Reese. They just cast Kyle Reese not too long ago. I have to double check on that, but they just cast him as well. I think it was Jai Courtney. Jai Courtney, who was John McClane's son in A Good Day to Die Hard. I mean, I didn't like that movie at all, but he was pretty good. And I've always been a fan of his in Spartacus. He played Spartacus's best friend in season 1 in Spartacus: Blood and Sand. But yeah, they got the original 3 cast, and Arnold's coming back, so it's going to be intriguing. It's being directed by Alan Taylor, who just directed Thor: The Dark World and has directed several episodes of Game of Thrones. He is directing this upcoming film, so there's a lot going for this, and I've been hoping for a good Terminator movie for the past. Well, I mean, Terminator 3 came out 11 years ago, and that was okay. And I stress okay as much as I can. So Terminator 2 came out in 1991. That right there is 23 years. I was 4 when the last good Terminator movie came out. I've been waiting long enough. Let's hope this one's good. Now we're going to get on to the user questions. So after every video, after some of the videos, but now after every video, we'll be letting everybody know that if they have any questions or topics or comments or anything like that that they'd like to make about any upcoming projects or anything that we've talked about, you can do it one of 3 ways. 1, you can just put a comment in the comment section below, and I will get a direct message letting me know that comment's been placed. 2, you can email me at movienewswithnicholson@gmail.com, and I'll put a little description up here on the video for you. And 3, you can add me on Twitter at Nicholson, Niklsun, and send me a tweet just at Nicholson with your question. And I will try to address it. So this week, and I'll try to do that every Friday. So Friday episodes are going to be mainly based of reviews of one topic. Next week will be the review of Captain America Winter Soldier, which I will be going to see next Thursday, and I will review it the following Friday. And then we'll get to the user questions on the Friday episode as well. So without any further ado, let's get on top of these. So the first question that I got was about the stars of the show Supernatural and whether or not they have any upcoming projects. So the question was, will Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki be doing anything new on the big screen in the future? And the short answer is no. Neither of these guys have anything announced, and the one thing that's really difficult is it's difficult for TV actors to really make that leap to the big screen and make it successful. One of the reasons that people do love TV actors is because they've been given years to learn and to love their characters. And they've been given years to become their characters. Now, when I watched Supernatural the first time, like the first episode, I was hooked, and I've watched it ever since. It's now in its 9th season, just got picked up for a 10th. Like 10 seasons, that's no short feat right there. Like the show is definitely very good. Both of these guys are great, and actually a couple of years ago, back in 2009, both of these guys headlined their own horror films, almost releasing on the same day. They had, ironically enough, they were reversed release times, which doesn't make sense when you think of the title of one of them. So Jensen Ackles was the lead actor in the remake of, oh, why am I forgetting it now? It's not Valentine's Day. Oh, my my Valentine, something Valentine was in it. Can't believe I'm drawing a blank. Jared Padalecki, on the other hand, was the star of the reboot of Friday the 13th. Um, and that actually will lead me into my next question, but I'll finish up on this one here. But there have only been a handful of actors who have made the leap from TV to film and actually made it stick. I've had a lot of people say, "Well, Alison Hannigan did it. I mean, she was in the American Pie movies." Name another movie. I'll give you time. Name another movie. You can't? That's a shame. Um, Again, that just rests my case. The only few that I can think of off the top of my head, there's Jennifer Aniston, who, I mean, yeah, she's been in a few movies, but she's never really been the lead in a lot of movies, at least not a lot of very big movies. She's been a main character, but not the lead. George Clooney is one. Um, Technically Robin Williams, I guess if you want to go that route. Tom Hanks would be another one. Now, again, those two moved out of TV like in the 70s and 80s. Um, Off the top of my head right now, I am drawing a blank. One that I wish never made that was Katherine Heigl. Um, except for Knocked Up, I don't think I've ever enjoyed a movie that she was in. I think she's just obnoxious. She's the female version of Adam Sandler. She does the same type of movie every time and expect it's the definition of crazy is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. And that's essentially what she does. It's the same movie over and over again. But getting back to Jared and Jensen, I don't think that they're going to be doing anything after Supernatural. I mean, something may be announced next year when after they're done shooting the season of Supernatural season 10, unless they get picked up for another one. But there's always the chance that they may be involved in the spin-off, which the premiere it's going to be premiering hopefully in the fall. But they have what's called what's it called? It's like a built-in pilot where they do a backdoor pilot. Sorry, backdoor pilot, where I believe the 20th episode this season, or the third last episode of this season, is going to be what's called a backdoor pilot. And that episode is essentially going to be about the spinoff and what the spinoff is going to be. And it's titled Supernatural Bloodlines. And as far as I'm aware, it's set in and around the Chicago area, about hunters and about I think the main character's like half werewolf or something like that. So that'd be pretty interesting. And there's always a chance that Jensen and Jared may be involved in that in a supporting capacity. Maybe a couple times a season they'll pop back in. But as of right now, no, they don't have anything lined up. The next question ties in with that one, and it was, will there be any new Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street films in the future? And so, first one, yes. Second one, no. I know that they are working on a new Friday the 13th film. They've said that this is going to be yet another reboot. It is apparently nothing to do with the 2009 film. This one, however, will be the 13th Friday the 13th movie. So the producers have come out in interviews and stated that we were aware that this is the 13th movie, that there is something unique and special about this movie that they really have to drive home. They are planning for a March 13th, 2015 release. With it being a horror film, it doesn't take that long to put it together. They can shoot it and edit it together in 5-6 months. So I mean, with them aiming for March, that means that technically they don't have to even start filming till the middle to end of summer. So they got a lot of time left. But other than that, there's really been nothing said. They don't even officially have a green light. That's just a date that they would like. But there's been no talks at all about another Elm Street movie. It was one of their more successful films in the sense that it made dollar value. It made the most money out of all of them, especially worldwide. But in comparison to the budget, I do believe that Nightmare on Elm Street did have the biggest budget of all those movies, so that really offsets it. And I don't think it was a really big profit for them. And they don't really have an idea of where to take it without getting into the campiness of the original series. So as of right now, they are hoping to get another Friday the 13th movie out by March of next year. But as it comes to Elm Street, there's nothing as of yet. But if there's more information about this that comes out, I will definitely update you guys. And the last user question that we have is, what's the status of Clerks 3? And funny enough, there's been a lot of rumblings about Clerks 3 and what's going on with that project. So for those of you who don't know, Clerks was the first movie by Kevin Smith that he made, and that itself has a really great story behind it. But I will let Kevin Smith tell you that himself. If you guys go ahead and watch An Evening with Kevin Smith, any one of the 3 movies, they're amazing. It's just him going around to these colleges and having these questions basically asked to him. And even though his character that he plays in his movies is called Silent Bob, the dude has an amazing way of articulating his stories. So he's definitely worth checking out. But he released a statement a few months ago, I think this was back in November, that Clerks, that he's like, okay, yep, we're doing it. We got Clerks 3. I've already talked to Harvey Weinstein. They like the script. They got to get back to me on the budget that I've requested, but we're going to start shooting April 7th. With or without them. If we don't get them backing us, we'll get someone else to back us. But as it stands right now, we're going to be shooting it in April. Then in February, he came out, and because he runs all these podcasts and stuff like that on just off of his website, off of Spodcast Internet Radio. And he stated in February that because of this project that came about through these podcasts, he's actually going to be doing the horror anthology film, Comes the Krampus. In that time frame that he was going to do Clerks 3. So Come the Krampus is actually going to be filming in the April time slot, and as soon as he's done with that, he's then going to move on to Clerks 3, unless something else comes up and he pushes that off yet again. The whole story with Kevin Smith right now, he kind of went through a midlife crisis, and as far as I'm aware, he's translating part of that into the script for Clerks 3. It is said to revolve around Dante and Randall during their midlife crisis, because as the story goes, Clerks was about a couple of guys in their 20s, Clerks 2 was a couple of guys in their 30s, and Clerks 3 is about a couple of guys going through their midlife crisis all the way to the end. So that might mean that this is going to be a final movie, that maybe the last scene of the movie will be Dante and Randall being really old and then one of them dying or both dying, or maybe Jay and Silent Bob kill them by accident or something. I don't know. I can see them doing something weird like that. But the one thing that this really does give me hope for is when Clerks 3 comes out, we'll finally get Jay and Silent Bob back on the screen. Because Kevin Smith said he had no intention of ever doing any more movies with them because he didn't have anywhere to go with them. So, but Comes the Krampus is really intriguing because is it Norwegian? Somewhere in Eastern Europe, the story of what happens on Christmas to all the naughty kids. And so Santa Claus, Krampus is basically the bad Santa Claus. And all the kids that are on the naughty list, he comes and eats them. And so this is going to be a horror anthology. Like, it's so twisted and out there. And, I mean, the movie that Kevin Smith is editing right now that he's already filmed is a horror film called Tusk, which is about a man who is, he's shipwrecked, and he has a companion with him who's basically like a walrus. And when he gets back to land, he's so distraught without having his companion with him that he actually puts out an ad for someone to dress in a walrus costume and kind of go about his day as a walrus. But the gentleman has ulterior motives and actually does like a human centipede type thing and tries to create a half man, half walrus kind of this weird thing. We haven't really seen anything from the film except for an artist rendition, what looked to be like an in-film plot, or an in-film plot device or prop that was an artist rendition of the half man, half walrus called Tusk. So I'm hoping to see something about that. And then Comes the Krampus sounds really intriguing. I don't know how good it will be. It kind of sounds like a Robert Rodriguez Grindhouse style story, but hopefully we're going to get Clerks 3, and because he announced his retirement a while ago, but now he's out of his retirement. He was originally going to be doing this movie called Hit Somebody, and then he was going to be doing it in 2 movies, and now that movie's just nowhere to be found. So we don't really know exactly what's going on with it, but I think with Kevin Smith kind of getting out of this little midlife crisis that he was in, we're going to get a lot more traction on these projects. So Clerks 3 will be coming. He's guaranteed it. He said it's going to happen regardless of what goes on with the studios. They're going to make it. I'm going to assume that they're going to start filming either by the end of this year or probably sometime early next year and release it sometime in 2016. That's my guess. But I could be wrong. But again, like with the Friday the 13th information, as soon as I get some more information, I'll definitely update you guys. Well, that'll about wrap it up for us here on Coming Soon Movie News with Nicholson. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have been awesome. Definitely don't forget to click subscribe. You can always subscribe to the channel and get updates on all your movie-related questions. Same with following me on Twitter. Definitely add me on Twitter. You can find me at Nicholson right here, at NIKLSUN. And I'll just be posting all information about movies as they come out, and then I'll try to cover all that information on the next episode. So, again, This has been Nicholson. Thank you guys so much, and without any further ado, you take care and enjoy.